Welcome back to Learn SKN. Today we're going to pick up where we left off in our previous video, and we looked at objectives number 1 through objective number 6 in the objective number 5 in the CSEC economics syllabus. So today we're going to continue and we're going to look at objective number 6. Okay, so we're going to just look at the production possibility curve. In some textbooks it's called the PPF, or the production possibility frontier. So it depends on what book you're looking at, but they're all one and the same. It's the production possibility curve or the production possibility frontier. So in objective 6 we are going to be looking at content A, illustration of the production possibility curve. So let's look at the textbook, the CSEC textbook. So here we see the production possibility curve, production possibility frontier right here. This is how it looks. Alright, so we're going to jump into that right now. Production possibility frontier. The production possibility frontier, also called the production possibility curve or boundary, is a graph showing the various combination of two goods that an economy is able to produce with fixed resources. The production possibility frontier is drawn on the following assumptions. 1. The economy produces only two goods. 2. The amount of resources is fixed. And 3. Each of the goods can be produced using changing ratios of the factors of production. And I'm gonna link a video at the end, one of my videos I did for POB, but the factors of production are the same in POB as they are in economics. So you can use that video to understand more of the factors of production. We'll get to it eventually in economics, but for now you can look at that video and understand what that is. So we have quite a lot to unpack here before we delve any deeper. First and foremost, what is a production possibility curve or a production possibility frontier? The definition we can use for that is a production possibility frontier, or PPF, is a graph that shows the combination of two goods the economy can possibly produce given the available resources and the available technology. For example, two goods could be computers versus wheat. Before we continue, let me just set one thing straight. Here you see they say that the economy is producing two goods, but all of us live in countries that produce more than two goods. Our countries produce multiple goods. We have various sectors. We have the construction sector, we have the financial sector, the tourism sector, the agricultural sector, you name it. We have a whole lot of different sectors in all of our countries, our economies. So what are they talking about two goods? Now, one thing you have to know about economics is that it can be really complex if we were supposed to go down and right into the numbers for real. It might be too complex for most of us to understand. So what this subject does is they go based on assumptions. So to simplify the whole thing with the economy, what they're basically saying is that, okay, this is an economy and it only produces two things. That's all, just two things. In this case, computers and wheat, just two things. That's the assumption. That's not the reality. That's just an assumption to make economics easier to digest. You'll see this happen all through your economics experiences. You have to use what you call models to understand the broader economy, because the economy is so complex, so dynamic, that you cannot really nail down the numbers so simply. So what they do, they simplify it by using models and by using various assumptions. And so the production possibility curve is based on three assumptions. Here they are. The economy produces only two goods. The amount of resources are fixed, meaning that whatever labor you have, whatever capital you have, they are fixed. They cannot change. They are fixed. If you have 5,000 labor hours, that's all you have. If you have $5,000 in capital, that's all you have. They are fixed. So that's the next assumption. And the third assumption, each of the goods can be produced using changing ratios of factors of production. So what they're saying here in our example is that you can produce computers or wheat. You can use the same factors of production. You can either use labor to produce computers, or you can use labor to produce wheat. So you can use the same factors to produce different combinations. It's about how you decide to share it up. Okay, so just let's understand that earlier clock. This is based on an assumption, three assumptions to be exact, and they are: the economy produces only two goods, the amount of resources are fixed, and each of the goods can be produced using change in ratios of factors of production. So it could be 5 units of capital versus 10 units of labor, or vice versa. Ratios of factors of production. Remember they have 4 factors of production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So again, there's a video. I'll link the video to the end. There's what I linked it in the previous video, that you can go and look at factors of production from the POB slides. Okay, so let's move on. So we understand what it is. We defined it. Okay, we defined a PPF, a graph that shows the combination of 2 goods the economy can possibly produce given the available resources and the available technology. That's the definition. It's a graph. Now let's move on from the definition. So illustrate the production possibility curve. We have shown it. Okay, we have shown it. It's right here. That's the production possibility curve. Alright, so you have one axis. You have the watermelons. This is the textbook example now. Watermelons, wafers. On the slides, you have 2 different examples. You have wheat and you have computers. Wheat and computers. So let's dig into what the PPF is really all about. Now, hear what they're saying here. Look at this table here. This table is showing all the various combinations that can be used to produce wheat or computers. They are saying that this economy in particular, there is only 100 hours of labor to produce 1 computer, but producing 1 ton of wheat requires 10 hours of labor. So let's go back to the textbook quickly to break this down further. So what they're saying here, look at the thing here for the table to show the breakdown. So the table is telling us that in this economy, they can only produce watermelons or wafers. Watermelons or wafers. If the economy were to use all of its resources to produce watermelons, they can only produce 100 watermelons. But they're using all the resources, meaning they cannot produce any wafers. Remember we said that the factors of production are fixed. They are fixed in this economy. That's an assumption. They are fixed. So right here we're looking at points A, B, C, D, E, F. At point A, look at it here on the production possibility curve, the red line, the red curve here. At the very top of the axis, you see watermelons. So come down, you realize that they are producing approximately 0 wafers. Okay, 0 wafers are being produced at point A. At point A, you're using all of the resources in the economy to produce watermelons. And if you use all of the fixed resources to produce watermelons, nothing gonna be left back for the wafers. Okay, nothing will be left back for the wafers. So, like they say, in an economy, you have different combinations, different ratios of the goods. So if we move to point B now, we're looking at a different combination. At point B, we're looking at 95 watermelons to 20 wafers, because the economy don't want to produce just one thing. They want to try to satisfy multiple people. So they're not going to just stick to watermelons only. So we're going to try some watermelons and we're going to try some wafers. But if they do this, the resources are only enough to produce 95 watermelons and just 20 wafers. So at point B, you can only produce 95 watermelons and 20 wafers. When you use all the resources together, you can only produce 95 watermelons and 20 wafers. Moving down the line, C, D, E. All these are different combinations of the 2 goods that the economy can produce. Different combinations. At E, you're producing more wafers than you are watermelons. At D, you're producing more watermelons than you are wafers. So all these are basically what the economy can produce. And the flip side, if you produce all wafers, that's 100. You can produce 0. You can't produce any watermelons if you put all the resources into wafers. So this is the easy part of the production possibility curve. All these here, all these points, A, B, C, D, E, F, they're what you call efficient points. These are the points of efficiency. What this means is that at any one of these points, the economy is using all of its available resources, all, nothing wasting, using all of its resources, whether it be 100 wafers or 100 watermelons, it's using all. Or it could be at D where you have a 70-60 split, you're using all. So this point, all the points along the production possibility curve are what you consider efficient points. You have total production efficiency right here. Now, if we look at the graph again, we're seeing two additional points. We are seeing G in here, and we're seeing H out here. G inside and H outside. Now, what is point G? What is happening at point G? Now, at point G, that's where we have some level of inefficiency occurring. Inefficiency. So point G is an inefficient level of production. What do I mean by this? That means that all the resources in the economy are not being fully utilized. You're wasting things. You're inefficient. You're wasting. Okay, so this is like using a whole lot of cloth to make just one type of your uniform. What are you going to do with the rest cloth? Throw it away? So that's inefficient. You're wasting that. So point G is the point of inefficiency. You are wasting resources because you can produce further out on the production possibility curve. You can produce at A, B, C, D, E, or F. At point G, you are wasting resources when you just stay there. At point G, you are wasting resources. Now at point H point H is what you call the unattainable point of production. You can't reach it. You cannot reach point H. You do not have enough resources to reach point H. It's impossible to produce at point H with the resources that this economy contains. You cannot produce at point H. It's impossible. It's unattainable. You cannot produce at point H. G is wasting money, wasting resources, wasting everything. It's inefficient. H is unattainable, impossible. A, B, C, D, E, F, all those are efficient points of production on the curve. Alright, let's look at it in another graph. Look at this graph here showing the wheat and the computers. As we explained earlier, E, D, C, B, A, all these are efficient points. All of these are efficient points. It's just different combinations. At E, using all the resources to produce wheat. At A, using all to produce computers. Now let's look at what we're talking about inefficient now. Look at this here. Hear what they say. On the graph, find the point that represents 100 computers and 3,000 tons of wheat. Find that point. Label it F. Would it be possible for the economy to produce this combination of goods, of two goods? Why or why not? Now the answer for that question is, of course, the economy can produce at F, but at F we're looking at 3,000 tons of wheat and 100 computers. Look at F. What is happening here? If you stay at 100 computers and 3,000 wheat, what is happening here? Inefficiency. Inefficient. Because you can still, when you produce 100 computers, you can still move up to 4,000. So you're telling me you're wasting a whole 1,000 tons of wheat just like that. If you produce at F, you are wasting at least 1,000 tons of wheat. So that is why F is inefficient. Now let's look at what they say about G now. Next, find the point that represents 300 computers and 3,500 tons of wheat. Label it G. Would it be possible for the economy to produce this combination of two goods? And of course the answer is no, because point G is unattainable. It's impossible. If you produce 300 computers, you can only produce at least 2,000 tons of wheat. You see that? You come up, this is where it hits, come across, that's where 300 computers give you in terms of wheat. At G, 300 computers, you go up to G, you cannot do it. You don't have enough resources to produce that much computers that much tons of wheat while you're also producing 300 computers. Something you have to give. And that is why point G is unattainable or an impossible. So let's go back to the textbook. Point H, unattainable, impossible. Point G is what we call inefficient. You are wasting resources. You're not fully employing all the resources in the economy. Okay, and then this paragraph basically explains what I just said. Okay, now look at this diagram here. This one is showing you that there is a way in which the economy can actually produce at a higher level. You can move. So this is what you call a shift in the production possibility curve. It can shift. What can cause it to shift? You have a number of factors that can cause the economy to shift, and they are these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 factors. There are more, but these are the main 5 that can cause the economy to shift its production possibility curve outwards. It can also shift inwards, which we will discuss later on. But for now, let's look at what would cause it to shift outwards. We said 1, economic growth. 2, discovery of new natural resources. 3, growth in population. 4, technological progress. 5, improvements in labor productivity. So let's unpack all of those and see how they can cause the economy to shift. Alright, let's see what they can cause the economy to shift. First things first, economic growth. What is economic growth? Economic growth simply means that the economy would have increased in its productive capacity. It would have increased in output. So if you look at business news or listen to some economic statistics, you hear this thing called GDP, gross domestic product. GDP, gross domestic product. We're gonna look at that later. What that simply means is that it's the value of all the goods produced within a country or an economy. So you can, let's say the GDP of America is $1 trillion. Let's say the GDP of, let's say, Jamaica might be, I don't know, you got $100 million. We just join reference. All right. Better yet, let's just do a quick Google search and we look at the GDP for a lot of these countries. Of course, United States, the big dog, they have the biggest economy in the world. So they have a GDP of about, they have it here in millions, but at this point it's trillions. Okay, couple $1 trillion right there, $20 trillion. America, biggest economy in the world, followed by the European Union. That's when they put them on a whole, but the World Bank would have China at number 2. All right, with 12 trillion right there. And then we have Japan, Germany, United Kingdom, India, France. Okay, so together, that's why you have you have the G7, the G20, the most powerful economies. Let's look at the Caribbean. Let's see which Caribbean country has one of the highest GDPs. All right, let's see which Caribbean country comes out first. More than likely, it might be Trinidad with the oil money. They would have a higher GDP. All right, so Trinidad would have a higher GDP than the other Caribbean countries. But we understand what we're talking about. Trinidad would have the highest. You come down, then you have Jamaica. Then you come down, Bahamas. But we're not going to dive too deep in that. Well, I simply brought this to your attention to show you what GDP is and economic growth. Now, economic growth is if this figure happens to increase. If it increases from one year to the next, that's economic growth. At least that's positive economic growth. So if this figure, the GDP, increase from one year to the next, then we have economic growth. What does this mean? That means that there's an increase in the productive capacity of the country. So that is why when they say here that economic growth can cause the production possibility curve to shift outwards, meaning you have more resources at your disposal as a country, so you can produce more goods. That's what it simply means. You get more resources in the economy now because economy has grown. So you get more labor, more capital, more resources in general. So that would cause the curve to shift outwards because you have more resources. So that's one. 2, discovery of new natural resources. I know Guyana had a discovery the other day of some oil or something like that. So with that, of course, their productive capacity can increase. So that can cause their production possibility curve to shift outwards because now you're going to have more resources in the economy to produce more things. Growth in the population. One of the reasons why China has such a large GDP is because China has 1.3 billion people, right? So that's like the highest population in the world, followed by India. So population growth can lead to an expansion in the productive capacity of a country because you have more people. So you simply throw bodies, throw labor, throw more labor at the jobs, throw more labor at this, do more work. That's why the Chinese are so efficient at building stuff. Because you have a house to build, you put about 10,000 man in the house done in no time. That's the Chinese model. Just pour a lot of work at it, just throw work at it, just throw a lot of labor at it. So of course, the larger your population is, the more productive you should be. Then of course, technology. Technology is always one thing that can lead to the outward shift of the production possibility curve. So if you ever see a question on CXC asking what can cause a shift in the production possibility curve outwards, this easiest answer is technology. Because technology makes people and resources more efficient. Technology means that you get a nice harvester. So what 10 men could have harvested, one machine harvesting in a shorter span of time, which means you have more resources in the economy. So technology can help you do things faster, more efficient. So technology will increase the efficiency and cause it to shift outwards. And of course, improvements in the labor productivity. Now, labor meaning the human resource, the people in the economy. So what this is saying is that if the people in a country or in economy becomes smarter, brighter, more university grads, more technical, more skilled people in the workforce, then production would increase. So the production possibility curve would shift outwards. Because if you know what you're doing, you're going to be more efficient at it. So if you go and learn a skill, a trade, you go to school, get your degree, you should be better at the job you were doing before. And so therefore you become more efficient, and as such you can push the curve outwards. Now, the curve can also shift inwards. Now, what would cause the curve to shift inwards? Well, it would be basically the opposite for these here. So if the economy slows down, the economy doesn't grow, then of course shift inwards because resources are reducing. If your technology is obsolete, then you can't produce efficiently, so the curve shift inwards. If a hurricane come through, destroy all your crops, destroy everything, destroy a lot of your productive resources, your factors of production, hurricane destroy them, natural resource destroy, a natural disaster destroys them, flood, whatever, then your production possibility curve would shift inwards because you're losing resources. If your labor, your human resource becomes unskilled, untrained, or the jobs in the economy now are too advanced for the current level of skill, then an inward shift would occur in the production possibility curve. So that would cause an inward shift. So basically we have covered that. We know about the movements of the curve outwards, inwards, and what can cause them. These are 2, 4, 5 factors that can cause the curve to shift inwards or outwards based on what it is. It could be positive, so you shift outwards, or negative, you're going to shift inwards. So let's look at the syllabus again. So we looked at the production possibility curve, and we looked at we jumped the gun, man. We're going to shift of the production possibility curve and the causes, and so we already covered C. So A and C. So let's break down B. How can the production possibility curve show scarcity, choice, opportunity cost? We already looked at shifts, and we already looked at efficiency and inefficiency. So efficiency is anything along the curve, inefficiency is inside the curve. So we looked at that already. Now let's show how the production possibility curve can show scarcity, choice, and opportunity cost. Let's jump to the slide for that one. Now, we discussed scarcity last class. We said scarcity refers to the fact that resources are limited, but yet we have unlimited ones. So as such, they're considered scarce because they don't go on forever. That's why they are scarce, because these resources can finish. They can done. They are not infinite. we have a limited amount of resources. We have limited money, limited land, limited labor. The population of the earth is like 7 point something billion. We have limited land, we have limited capital, limited money. So that is why we have scarcity. And that is what is illustrated on the production possibility curve. The curve is showing scarcity because you have to give up something to get something. So that's also opportunity cost, but scarcity comes into play because we are limited by the curve. Let me show you the scarcity right here. This right here, out here, H, shows that resources are limited. You can only produce here. So that's where scarcity comes into play, because you can only produce here. Out here you cannot. Resources are limited. So therefore you cannot produce out there. That's where scarcity comes in. And of course choice comes in because you can either choose to produce one good, you can produce a combination of goods. It all depends on what the economy wants. So you can choose, you have to choose. You can either choose to produce all of one or a different combination of both two. So that's where choice comes into play. Now opportunity cost, as we said earlier, opportunity cost is the cost of giving up one thing for another. So we look at that in the previous video. So look at that video for opportunity cost. The cost of giving up one thing for another. And I'm pretty sure you could already see how opportunity cost is represented in this diagram. You can already see it. Okay, I'll give you a second to see if you can think about it before I jump in on it. Okay, let's go. So the production possibility frontier illustrates the concepts of scarcity, choice, and opportunity cost. In figure 1.4, this one, the economy cannot produce more of both goods, say move from A to D, as we looked at earlier. So anything out here shows that resources are limited and thus we have scarcity. So if you're asked to draw to show on the production possibility frontier, the PPF, scarcity, then simply point to out here and explain the fact that the economy have limited resources, so therefore they cannot produce out here. So that's scarcity right there. So that's scarcity. We see it, we understand it. Now let's move on. That's scarcity. Now what about choices? Same thing we said. You can either choose to produce here or choose to produce there. That's the choice. Anywhere along here, choice. You can have a combination or not. What about opportunity cost? Let me jump to the slide for the opportunity cost one so you can see it a little clearer. Before we move on, let's look at the shape of the curve. Alright, so the shape of the curve is what you call a bow shape. They said the curve is shaped like a bow. The production possibility curve could be straight, or in this case, as the book shows it, shaped like a bow. Alright, see the bow right here, like a bow. Why? It depends on what happens to opportunity cost as the economy shifts resources from one industry to another. If the opportunity cost remains constant, meaning that if you give up 10 of something for 10 of another, then it's going to be a straight line because that's across the board. 10 for one, 10 for another. 10 for one, 10 for another. Or as the example shows here, in the previous example, opportunity cost of computer was always 10 tons of wheat. So it was constant. But there are some instances where it is not constant. Meaning, if opportunity cost of a good rises as the economy produces more of the good, the PPF is bow-shaped. What are we talking about here? We're saying here, if you have to keep giving up more and more and more of one to get the other, then the curve is going to be shaped like a bow. So if at first, to produce one beer, you have to give up 10 mountain bikes. But then to produce 2 beers, you have to give up 25 mountain bikes. Then to produce 3 beers, you have to give up 35 mountain bikes. Then that would be bullshit because you have to give up more and more and more of one to get the other one. So that is why it's bow-shaped. Let's read here. As the economy shifts resources from beer to mountain bikes, the PPF becomes steeper, as you can see here. Opportunity cost of mountain bikes increases, so you have to give up more and more and more to get mountain bikes. At point A, most workers are producing beer, even those that are better suited to build bikes. So they're saying here, at point A, you might have a mechanic, but the mechanic making beer. Like, come on, that's not his job. That's not his skill, but you have to making beer still, because the economy is more focused on making beer, brewing beer. That's what they say here. So do not have to give up much beer to get more bikes. So we're looking at this now. Moving on. In the next slide, look at this. Look at this. At point B now. Point B, things get real serious. Most workers are producing bikes. The few left in beers are the best brewers. Producing more bikes will require shifting some of the best brewers away from what they love to do, what they can do, from beer, and would cause a big drop in beer output. So that is why you have to give up more beer to get more mountain bikes. So you see it right there. So that's why the curve is shaped like this. So let's put it in a nutshell. So the production possibility curve is box-shaped when different workers have different skill levels, different opportunity costs of producing one good in terms of other. Simply put, you have to give up more and more of one thing to get the other. That is why it's box-shaped, because it shows opportunity costs where you have to give up one to get the other. So right there is the opportunity cost on the curve. You have to give up one to get the other. That's what we look at last time, opportunity costs. But in some cases, you have to give up more and more and more to get just a little bit of the other one. So that is why it is box-shaped. Opportunity costs come into play right here. Great opportunity costs. So let's summarize this one here, the production possibility frontier. A summary: the PPF shows all combination of two goods that an economy can possibly produce given its resource and technology. The PPF illustrates the concept of trade-off and opportunity costs, efficiency and inefficiency, unemployment and economic growth. A box-shaped PPF illustrates the concept of increasing opportunity costs. So that's the production possibility curve in a nutshell. Okay, so one more thing we look at before we move on. One more thing. This right here. This is what I call a pivot in the production possibility frontier. A pivot, meaning it didn't fully shift. We looked at the shift up here, the whole thing moving. But down here now, we're looking at what you call a pivot. Why does it pivot? Let's read and see what they say about the pivot here. Now, they say you have good Y, good X. Y-axis, X-axis. Good Y, good X. Now, they're saying that assume that the industry for good Y uses a high proportion of labor. So it's labor intensive. Use a lot of workers. Good Y requires a lot of workers. It's labor intensive. A lot of workers, like construction or farming. Those are labor intensive endeavors. Construction, farming, those kind of things. And industry for Y uses a high proportion of capital. So we're looking at capital here. Money, more money. It requires a lot of money, like telecommunications and those things. It's expensive to run wire, expensive to buy satellites, expenses. So it costs a lot of money. What could have caused a pivot from A, C, which was the original one, from AB, which was the original AB, to A, C? What could have caused that? Notice that the industry producing X can now produce more of X. Why? The reason for that is that there is an improvement in technology, and this benefits the capital intensive industry more than it does the labor intensive industry. So that's why there's a pivot, because the farming or the construction or whatever, the labor intensive job, there's no improvement in that sector. But the capital intensive job now has improved technology, and that technology causes them to be able to produce more than they did before. Okay, for example, a labor intensive job would be something like I said, telecommunications. So now we're moving from, let's look at broadband. You're moving from 5 megabit to maybe 30 megabit. Improving technology caused this. So fiber cables or something come on stream. So all of a sudden now, with the same with a similar infrastructure, you can now produce more. You can give the people more bandwidth. So with more bandwidth, you can do more things. You can produce more things because technology has boosted. Look at phones. Because the technology in phones have improved so much over the years that can cause us to be more productive. So that can cause the pivot of the capital intensive industry. Because a phone first, when you have feature phones, they only had the dial pad and maybe a snake or not even touch screen. You couldn't do much on those phones. Call, text, that's about it. Productivity, that's it. Then we jump to touch screen, internet ready, smartphones. All of a sudden, productivity. Call, WhatsApp, send messages, surf the web, use various apps. So right there, technology can cause the pivot. But the labor intensive job now, still using hand, still using old school technology. So therefore, the productive capacity has not changed as much. So it's going to remain, whereas the good X going to pivot because that's more labor intensive. So that's basically it for the production possibility curve, production possibility frontier. Let's go over it quickly. We're going to use the one from the textbook. So let's run through it again. Production possibility curve is a diagram that shows the combination of two goods in an economy. Anything along the line, along the curve, is considered efficient production, efficient. Anything inside is inefficient, meaning you're wasting resources. Anything outside is considered unattainable or impossible because you do not have that amount of resources in the economy. The curve also shows opportunity cost because you have to give up. Look at this, watermelon to wafer. You have to give up watermelon to get wafer. So at point B, you have to give up some watermelon to get some more wafer, and down the line, give up to get opportunity cost. Scarcity is depicted right here at H, where you say that resources are limited, and as such, you have to choose. The choice is now coming into play. Limited resources, you cannot produce out the scarcity. Now there are some things that can cause the production possibility curve to shift outwards or inwards depending on the trend. For example, economic growth. The economy has grown, so therefore you can produce more, so it shifts outwards. If the economy decreases, it's going to shift inwards. Discovery of new resources can cause a shift outwards. If you use up all the resources, then shift inwards. Growth in population causes it to shift outwards. A fall in birth rate, shift inwards. Technological progress can cause it to shift outwards. Obsolete technology can cause it to shift inwards. Improvement in your human capital, your workforce, can cause it to go outwards, more efficient. When skills are not meeting the required job, it shifts inwards. So that's it in a nutshell. Production possibility frontier. Alright, so that's it for now. Make sure you click the notification bell so you know when I drop a next video. The next one is going to be on Objective 7, Section 1 in the economic syllabus. Factors affecting the economic decision of economic agents. And we said there are basically three economic agents. That's the household, the firm, and of course the government. So next time we're going to look at Objective 7. So stay tuned, click the bell, give me a like, subscribe, tell your friends, spread the news. Again, I'm going to link the factors of production video at the end of this one so that you can go back so you can know what factors of production we're talking about. Alright, so that's it for now.